Welcome, YouTube, to a Narrative Crusade Index review of Chaos Space Marine leaders, what they are capable of, how they perform on the table, and which are the most dangerous. Our new campaign is live. You can get a copy on Discord. It is free to play, and our draw for patrons has been completed for this month. Next month, we will be giving away another 2 combat patrols. We are trying to push this to 3. The more subscribers we get, the more we will give away. So, Chaos Space Marines, how are they doing at the moment? Well, in terms of options, we have so many. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different leaders. They all bring different things to the table. I think there's a lot of potential for themes. We're considering writing some lists at the moment. Which ones are you most keen to see? What are your thoughts? Leave some comments below about the different themes that you've perhaps incorporated within your Chaos Space Marine lists, or even played again, ones that you think are quite cool. We're curious to see how Legion players are feeling. I painted my Chaos Space Marines as Black Legion, and I've got a reasonable collection of those, so I don't think I was too invested when all of the abilities lost. But what have you actually seen, and how are you feeling out there at the moment? So, firstly, our lowest tier, they're C minuses. They're not so bad, but they're also not shouting out as being the best. Maybe potentially because they're not the best leaders in the squad. Typhus here doesn't even belong in this book, which is why he's on the C minus tier. So, we've got Billy No Mate. He's okay in melee, but is he really a leader? Well, he gives vehicles +1 to hit. That can be very powerful on some units for sure, and he can even repair vehicles, but is he really a leader? He doesn't actually help the unit that he's in, and he actually has lone operative, solid C minus. We also have the Sorcerer of Chaos. His weapons are a little bit lackluster. He's got bolt pistol, he's got infernal gaze. If we risk it for the biscuit and we go for hazardous, we improve our strength by 1, we improve our AP by 1, and nothing happens to the damage. So perhaps not that great, more of a witch spark than a witch fire. He does give our whole unit -1 to hit. Now that is quite a good ability, especially if we put him in something like Chosen, where we're hoping to get in there, probably get shot at quite a lot on the way in. So that can actually be quite useful. That's it for C minuses. I actually found it quite difficult to justify C minus for some of these. So on to B plus. These are the solid fun and gun characters. They're going to be useful wherever you put them. They have application. They're great fun on the table. So, lowest of the low, and this will upset him, Hurian Blackheart. He has a flamer. That's quite cute. Strength 6 as well. Range 12 isn't the best, but it's a flamer. What do you expect? If he's in with a group of legionaries, then perhaps 2 or 3 flamers might be worth an overwatch. 6 to 10 attacks, though, with a choice of weapons. He's got an exalted weapon, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2. Can't complain at that. But also has a 10 attack option, so he's got a bit of a sweep attack going on. He is Chaos Undivided, which will actually influence our whole unit, and I think that's what pushes him down quite a lot, is it means the unit he joins has to be Chaos Undivided. It's not like Chaos Undivided is rubbish, it's actually very good, but it does mean that we don't have as much choice. He does give us bonus OBSEC, can be very helpful, but quite a lot of the times we're finding that that's not that big a deal. However, his redeploy is fantastic. Being able to redeploy 3 infantry units at the start of the game is always very, very useful. And he does have a once a game ability that lets him move his unit. So you could use that to retreat, or you could use it to move forward, depending on how you actually want to apply that. The Exalted Champion of Chaos. He's playing a long game. 10,000 years, managed to stay in the middle, not perhaps too noticed by the gods, so hasn't turned into a Chaos Spawn yet. Perhaps it's time for him to look to get for a promotion. He's no slouch in melee. He has 5 attacks. When you give him the bonus strength, his strength goes up to 6, but potentially 8. That does have application depending on what you're fighting. A lot of elite units are toughness 6, so that strength 7 can come in very handy. Toughness 8 against strength 8 is obviously very, very useful. The +1 to hit, it is across the board. It is not just in melee. So if he's leading Chosen, the Chosen are hitting on 2s. It's also worth noting that you can add another leader, into the unit that he's leading. Now that means you've got some combo capability. We've discussed that in another video already, it is bad news for your transports. But if you're looking at walking across the board, this man's worth a little look at. Too many voices in his head, the master of possession. He's got some really useful anti-psyker abilities. If you're going up against Eldar, worth looking at our combat patrol for how that goes, then some nice little anti-psyker abilities really can come in clutch. He wounds on 2+. You can look at his Witchfire enhancement to go to 3 damage as well. Perhaps worth it at that point, especially since it's got precision if you want to try and snipe a leader. That strength 6, flat 3 damage, AP 3 going into Terminators can actually be pretty nasty. How does he act as a leader? Pretty useful. He can only lead possessed, but he gives them +1 advance and charge. Now, that is just a really, really useful ability across the board. They have 3 wounds and he gives them a 6+ feel no pain ability. Can't really complain at all. He does have the ability to kind of sacrifice and cause a wound to the unit he's in to give himself a little buff. You may or may not want to be using that. As a leader, really, really quite powerful. Harken World Claimer, I could argue I've put him a little bit high, but he's just too much fun. He's great to take in a unit of Raptors. Again, he has to make them undivided, but he has his own little melee tanking ability in the fact that his Herald's Talon is 6 attacks. He's re-rolling a lot of the time. Weapon skill 2+, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2, precision. He can really get in there and potentially rip out some characters from units. He's causing mortal wounds for the unit that he's actually leading when they charge. Again, I can accept not maybe the best, but lots of fun. The do as I do guy, the master of executions, leading from the front, chopping people up in combat, has a lot of different ways you can use this guy in terms of when you choose for him to attack, because he's re-rolling his hits. Now, his acts of dismemberment causing devastating wounds with precision, 5 attacks depending on what mark you've actually given the unit. You could be going to Khorne for auto wounds, you could be going for Slaanesh for exploding hits, you could give him enhancement that gives him plus D3 attacks and D3 strength. That takes him to 6 to 8 attacks at strength 8 to 10. Very, very, very powerful. AP2's enough to put most things on their invulnerable save. Damage 2, obviously very good. I think the real benefit him is the Warp-Sided Butcher ability, because that lets the unit re-roll their hits. So if you've gone for Slaanesh or you've gone for Khorne, and that's only a melee, not like the Exalted Champion, then what that's doing is that's exploding 6s, is very, very useful for generating auto wounds or exploding hits for the entire unit. You can just fish for 6s all day. Loads of fun re-rolling those dice, even if you're re-rolling your hits. Lucius, I'm loving Lucius. He's got a flamer, that's rude. He has fight first, that's disgusting. If you're taking Noise Marines, he's very, very useful. Even if you put him in a unit of Legionaries, Legionaries are not a slouch in terms of in melee, especially if they're hitting first on the charge. And your Legionaries are often the unit that you're sort of sending forward first. And I really like the fact that if you kill him, he hurts you and he has the potential to be put back on the board. It's not going to happen very often, I'm going to be honest. It's not happened to me at all. But just the potential of the fact that he might get back up. He has 8 attacks as well. He's a lot of fun. Note that he does have the Slaanesh keyword, so you would have to put that on your unit. Not that you want to complain at that, because again, he has the fight first. If you put Slaanesh on your unit, that means the Legionaries have got exploding 5s and 6s in melee. If you choose to take that Dark Pact, then it could cause an outrageous number of hits. Who's our A++ then? Who are our leaders that we're probably going to want to take in most games, especially if we're really trying to win? I really like the Dark Apostle. He has rubbish weapons. He is definitely a real leader, real old school manager. Stand at the back, do what I say, not what I do. He has a once a game remove battle shock ability. That can actually come in clutch. You could have something happen that you don't expect. He's nearby. You need a stratagem. You can't use it because you're battle shocked. Oh wait, now you can use it once again. Or you're going to lose an objective and now you hold it. Doesn't come off in every game for sure. When it does come off, remember it's there. You're likely to forget it's there and suddenly you've won a game. He can lead a really diverse number of units as well. I'm probably not going to put him in a cultist mob, but he's a really good shout to put in an accursed cultist unit, especially if you've decided to go down the word bearers route and you've got a bit of a theme going in your army. He's also quite useful in legionaries. Why is that? Because he actually gives +1 to wound. So he has the +1 to wound in melee, but what I really like is the little malign sacrifice ability at the bottom that lets you cause mortal wounds to an enemy unit by stabbing up one of the guys carrying a book. But what I think is quite cheeky as well in a way is that if your opponent knows that's going to happen, it even has a little bit of counterplay because you can just use precision to kill them before it happens. It's probably not worth doing, but I do like the fact that it's there. Right, some doctors are bad for you. Fabius Bile. If you've read the lore, the Rod of Torment is secretly a little bit disappointing. It looks good at 6 attacks. It's got a weapon skill 2+. It's strength 5 and it's damage 3. I was only disappointed because in the books, it's one of these little weapons that if anything touches it at all, it is in infinite amount of pain. Almost nothing can stand the touch of the Rod of Torment, and that's not reflected. But you know what? He's got some pretty reasonable weapons. He's got the Chirurgeon for a couple of extra attacks, and even his little pistol is quite nasty. I'm not sure why the Surgeon Acolyte is there. Maybe he's there to just tank a Titan round if one goes off, and you just get him dead first, because he actually stops you being able to put the unit that Fabius Bile's in a transport with any kind of efficiency. He does give a huge stat boost. +1 toughness in a lot of situations is absolutely fantastic. +1 strength is also never to be shy at all. And there's a really good chance that if he dies, he gets back up and just carries on with his little auto revive ability that he's carrying around with him. We really are heading into the best of our best now. These are our most powerful characters, our most powerful leaders. We have our Sorcerer in Terminator armor. He has a reasonable profile being a Terminator. He has 5 wounds with his good old 4-up invulnerable save. He has some pretty reasonable melee weapons. He's got a Storm Bolter, or he's got a combi weapon. His Infernal Gaze is once again a little bit more of a tickle fire. It's not brilliant, but it's some extra damage as well. Where this really comes in is with Warp Time, because if you deep strike him in a Terminator blob, you're re-rolling 9-inch charges. The chances are you're going to get that if you're re-rolling 9s. It's not the most dependable, but it's something you're likely to be spending a CP on, and now you don't. If you've decided to walk your Terminators across the board, they are slow. There will be times that you want to advance instead of shooting. You get to re-roll that dice for free, so if you roll a 1 or a 2, you're going to get that re-roll. You would have used a CP to do that. That's likely to come up. If you've decided to go for the Mark of Nurgle and you're walking across the board, you're definitely going to be wanting to advance as fast as you can. Death Hex is the real reason we're taking this guy. The ability to increase the AP of our attacks against that unit is just absolute death for that unit. You're talking sometimes perhaps about 40 bolter shots. If you've got exploding 6s or exploding 5s, or maybe you've even got the auto wound 5s, that is an immense amount of incoming fire at AP1 that will whittle down. Even knights get started at that point to be whittled down, especially if you've got auto wounds on 5s at AP1. It takes your accursed weapons to AP3. So you might not even decide to put this guy in a squad. You drop him in, you choose the unit you want to die, and then you use the ability to do that. The only downside I'm seeing is if you deep strike your Terminators in, the unit in front of you is a bit weak, and you shoot it off the board, that might not have been the best use of Death Hex. So just look out for that. Maybe you want to choose a different unit. It does have to be visible. It is quite short range. Also worth noting, the Chaos Familiar means that really this guy's at 6 wounds at the very least, because if he gets hit by a damage 3 weapon, even a damage 1 weapon, you can actually just say, nope, that's damage 0. I don't like it. Also worth noting, that can be done to something that does say 3 mortal wounds. You can just turn it to 0 because it's a 3. Before it's allocated, the profile is 3. So if he takes 3 mortal wounds from a cheeky sniper shot, you can just discount that and take it to 0. Right, our OG Chaos Leaders, we're on to our Chaos Lords now. They have good profiles. They're solid across the board. They have a gun, who cares? They have a melee weapon. They've got a number of choices. Most of them are really, really good. The first time they come up against something vaguely tough, pop Chance for Glory. That takes your AP to 3 for your Demon Hammer or your Power Fist, and flat 3 damage. These guys should chop down at least 1 or 2 Terminators in that first round of combat if you're going into something nasty. If you're looking at the Chaos Lord here in Terminator armor, you can take his Chain Fist to AP 3, flat 3 damage as well, once per game. You can even take his Exalted Weapon to flat 3 damage as well. That is not a bad damage output for once per game, and that's not even including any kind of marks that you've given onto them, such as Khorne or Slaanesh, if that's the way you go. The real reason we're taking these guys, the real reason you're probably going to take at least 1, maybe 2 in every single game, is the fact that you can 0 CP a strat, and that can be a strat that's already used. The application for this is almost infinite. It's a very, very powerful ability. Unless you're taking a really thematic list, it's your leader. He's a Chaos Lord. Where else is he going to be except at the front, bashing things in with his whatever exalted weapon he's decided to take with him on that day? The surprising little sneaky in plebs. The Dark Commune is actually one of the most powerful units, I'd argue. Why is that? For 245 points, you're getting 36 wounds. That is a lot of wounds fairly cheaply. But more significantly, they come now, as soon as you put a Dark Commune, you're talking about a 5-up invulnerable save on those wounds. If you're taking the accursed cultists, and that's what I'm assuming you're taking, is the largest block of accursed cultists you can, you're getting wounds back every single command phase. They have a 6+ feel no pain. That makes this block really tanky. Now, there is also the fact that they give the unit advance and charge. They have +1 to hit. They have +1 to wound. That means that you're hitting on 3s like a Space Marine with your rubbish cultists, and their strength 5. The hideous mutations on the torments are strength 5. So really, you're wounding Space Marines on 2s, and they're flat damage too. The AP might only be 1, but who cares? Because you're even getting loads of fun attacks at D6 +2, or you're getting to generate loads of random attacks. They're just so much fun on the table. They hang around forever. You have to be careful of the marks, because they can't actually be given the mark of Khorne, because the moment you put the Dark Commune in the unit, they've got a Psyker in there, and Khorne don't like Psykers. Slaanesh is really the only mark you want to give to this unit then, because they haven't got any guns. So there's not really any point in giving them any other mark, except for Undivided. That's also a good choice. Final little note, you've got a Mind Witch in there. I would just use the Focused Witchfire every single round. Why? Because it's funny. Range 18, 3 attacks, sustained hits 2, damage 2, and she might explode. Who cares if she does? I like the idea of a Chaos player just sacrificing their Psykers. It's a little brain on a stick if you actually look at the model there anyway, and quite scary, and best to get that model off the board. Who is the best of our best? Well, we all know it really, don't we? It's the new Warmaster. He is, I mean, what can I say? He is across the board an amazing unit. He's a monster in melee. His abilities are very, very good. Rerolling hits on a unit of Terminators with whichever mark you decided to give the Terminators is outlandish in terms of the fact that you can fish for those 6s all day. Your brick of Terminators might just refuse to die because you can use strats on them. He gives other units a 4+ invulnerable instead if you want, and he's giving you a CP a turn. He is, if you decide to take him, I don't like to take him too often, but in terms of really powerful units, he is going to be one of your auto includes if you're so inclined to take him. Right, couple of honourable mentions now. Don't want him to feel left out. Huron Blackheart here before he starts his civil war. We have Cypher. He's not a leader. However, he could be quite good to hang around with a unit. He can shoot units in your enemy's turn. His gun is actually very powerful. However, it's only a range 12. unlike the Hexmark Destroyer. Their Hellbrute is a real force multiplier, not a leader, but what he does do is he lets your nearby units have both of the Dark Pact abilities at once. So every time they activate Dark Pacts, if you have a Hellbrute nearby, you get both of them and not just one of them. And let's not forget our leaders who failed. You should always include some Chaos Spawn just to encourage your other leaders to do a better job and not fall for any of the Chaos shenanigans. Thanks for listening. Reminder, let us know which themed lists you'd like to see. And if you are a Chaos Space Marine player, how have you actually been finding the game so far? Have you run any themed lists? If you've got some of the legions, how are you actually feeling? Thanks for listening.